In this alternate history, the United States doesn't become a dictatorship. It becomes something quieter and harder to name.
This story is fictional. It's based on real events, but everything beyond the known facts is speculation. Our goal is to explore an alternate timeline, not to rewrite history, but to imagine what might have been.
On Wednesday, July 15, 2026, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche sat before the Senate Judiciary Committee to be confirmed as the permanent head of the Justice Department. But the questions weren't really about the law. They were about loyalty. Senators pressed him on his record as Donald Trump's personal defense lawyer. Could a man who had spent years defending the president in court now be trusted to run the agency that prosecutes crimes against the country? They asked about a proposed settlement fund, taxpayer money set aside to pay people who claimed the Justice Department had targeted them unfairly. And they came back again and again to the Epstein files. What was in them? Who was named? Why so much of it had never seen daylight? Blanche gave careful answers. He promised independence. He promised transparency. The committee was uneasy, but the votes were there, and the system held its breath and kept functioning. But what if it hadn't? What if Blanche had been confirmed and then chosen loyalty over law at every fork in the road? The first crack came within weeks. The settlement fund opened, and it did not go to the wrongly accused. It went to Trump's allies, men who had been investigated, indicted, or convicted in connection with January 6th. Millions out of the Treasury as compensation for what the administration now called political persecution. The message was unmistakable. Stand with the president, and the government would make you whole. Cross him, and you were on your own. Then Blanche moved on the January 6th cases, not just the pardons that had already gone out, the prosecutors themselves. Career attorneys whose cases were fired, their emails subpoenaed, some of them charged with abusing their power for having done their jobs. Inside the Justice Department, a chill set in. Lawyers stopped writing things down. They quietly declined to open cases that might anger the wrong people. The department that was supposed to answer to the Constitution began answering to one man. The Epstein files were the fuse. Blanche had promised to release them. Instead, he sealed them tighter, citing national security, citing investigations that never seemed to end. And the public, already suspicious, drew the obvious conclusion. The files were being buried to protect the powerful, and the most powerful man in the country sat at the top of the list. Leaks began. A few pages here, a name there, some real and some forged, all of it impossible to verify because the official record stayed locked. Rumor filled the vacuum. Half the country believed the president was a monster being shielded by his own attorney general. The other half believed the leaks were a coup attempt by the deep state. No neutral authority remained that trusted to say what was true. That was the real damage, the death of the referee. When the Justice Department became a weapon, people stopped believing any verdict, any investigation, any official fact. Courts issued rulings and were ignored. A federal judge ordered the files released, and Blanche simply declined. There was no one left to force him. The states moved first. Blue state attorneys general announced they would no longer cooperate with a Justice Department they called captured. They withheld evidence and opened their own investigations into federal officials. Red states retaliated, prosecuting their political enemies with the same logic the administration had modeled from the top. The idea of one national law applied to everyone quietly died. In its place came 50 different justice systems, each loyal to its own tribe. Federal law enforcement fractured next. Agents who had joined the FBI to catch criminals found themselves ordered to investigate the president's critics instead. Some resigned, some leaked, some obeyed. Nobody knew who was on which side, so nobody trusted anyone. Informants dried up. Real cases, terrorism, trafficking, organized crime, went cold because the people who should have worked them were busy watching their own backs. Then the money got scared. Investors can live with a lot, but they cannot live without predictable rule. When the largest economy on Earth stopped enforcing contracts evenly, when a company's fate depended on whether its CEO had donated to the right campaign, capital started looking for the exits. Foreign governments quietly moved reserves out of American assets. Ratings agencies warned that political risk in the United States now resembled that of a failing state. Borrowing costs climbed. Markets that had shrugged off scandals for years finally understood that the thing they were built on was gone. By winter, the country did not look like a dictatorship. There were no tanks in the streets. That was what made it so hard to name. Elections still happened, but their results were contested in courts no one respected and decided by officials no one trusted. The Justice Department still existed, still had a seal on the door, still sent out press releases. It just no longer served the public. It served the man. The people who suffered were ordinary. The whistleblower who lost his pension for telling the truth. The small business owner who couldn't get a fair hearing because she'd backed the wrong candidate. The prosecutor who spent her savings defending herself against charges that existed only to punish her. Millions of Americans learned that the law was no longer a shield they could stand behind. It was a club, and it belonged to whoever held power. And it had all started with a confirmation hearing, a committee that had the votes, a nominee who made careful promises, a moment when the guardians of the system chose to trust a man who had already told them exactly who he served. The worst outcome wasn't a coup or a war. It was quieter than that. A nation of laws woke up one morning to find it had become a nation of loyalty, and that no one had been willing to stop it while there was still time.
In this world, history went one way. But here, we ask what could have happened. If you want more alternate timelines and government what-ifs, subscribe, comment your theory, and stay tuned. This is State of What If.